Okay, well, welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, May 28th. The topic is not a battle, but an opportunity. I've got some good stories for you guys tonight, I think. So welcome. Happy to be hosting the call tonight. Alex, good to see you again. I know you missed a couple weeks, but obviously that's why we record these, so you can watch them another day. All right, so I'm going to start with talking about I think everybody here knows that I'm running a campaign for somebody that's running for governor in the state of Montana. And, a lot of thoughts went through my head when this individual came to me and said, "Hey, Jim, I want you to run my campaign." And by the way, I've ran many campaigns before. Rod and I helped 51 school board candidates run a couple years ago. I've run a local Senate race. I ran an assembly person race in California. So I'm not new to it. I wouldn't consider it my career or my preferred choice of work, although I do enjoy it because for me, it feels like I'm able to give back in a way that aligns with my values. And we're going to touch on values a little bit later on, like I normally do. But so it does check a lot of boxes for me. But when you think about a campaign and running for office, I mean, that's a battle. It doesn't matter how you slice it. It is a battle. And I will tell you, I've seen some of the ugliest sides of people in politics or being an elected official. Actually, I'm not an elected official anymore as of a week ago. My school board candidacy termed out last week, so I'm no longer an elected official, but I've seen some of the ugliest sides of people in politics, and we'll use the word battle tonight, because people selfishly are going after whatever it is that they want out of the deal, what they think is important, and that's where the battle comes from, is all the selfishness. And it takes thick skin to push through that clutter day in and day out. Now, I've been on the campaign trail for this governor position since last June. So it's been, in a couple days, it's been a full year on the battlegrounds. And I'd say for the most part, it's been great. But, you run into obstacles every single day. And the reason why this is such a neat comparison to business is that there's never an easy day in politics. There's never an easy way to go out and win an election when you have an opponent. Not to mention when you have a primary opponent, which, if you don't know, that's going to get somebody in your same party on June 4th, which is next week, obviously. We'll vote on who wins the primary, and then we'll go on to the general election, which happens in November, right? So not only do you have to battle the people in your own party first, then if you make it through that battle, the big battle, then you get to go battle again until November and go against the opposite party. The point of that is that it's a constant struggle. It's a constant opportunity to have thick skin, to re-engage, to pull out all the tools that you've learned throughout the years to come out the other side of whatever the battlegrounds look like. And trust me, in the last 12 months, the battle has been vast and wide on all sorts, whether that's a PR assault, whether it's the candidate did something 30 years ago that somebody's flushing out, oh, this guy was mean to me in high school, and you got to deal with that because it turns into a PR thing. My candidate, you might think this is kind of cool. I actually do. I don't know the whole story, but basically, he pushed his wife's car, she wasn't in it, off a cliffside. And there was a valid enough reason for it. And I don't remember all the details. Anyways, it was his car. But, the anger got the best of him. But this thing's been haunting him for 20 years. Our current governor, before he got elected, he punched somebody in the news, literally in the face, in an office. So there's all kinds of ugliness that you get to push through. So if you're not dealing with PR nightmares, you could be dealing with schedules. For example, my candidate has a full-time job, as well as campaigning is a full-time job for governorship, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is that in politics, just like in business, every day feels like a battle. But, and here's the big but, and that's the other half of the topic tonight. Look at it as an opportunity. And that's why we say not a battle, but an opportunity. So where do those opportunities come from? Well, first of all, the opportunities come through the struggle. Because when you're going through the struggle, you're learning. You're learning how to overcome those obstacles. You're having to, whether it's teach yourself or implore resources or ask for help or read a book on how to get through the issues, ask a friend, join a mentorship group, join a coaching group, join a community. All these things that you have a battle with is an opportunity to learn and be better on the other side. I know I talked about this recently. I was referencing my In-N-Out Burgers days, that if you were going to work there, you had to start at the bottom, right? So the battle there was to work your way from the bottom all the way to the top, because as you learned every position, you had an opportunity to grow. And that's the same thing in your own businesses. When you're overcoming the oppositions, you have an opportunity to grow. So I'll use Alex as an example because he's here tonight. Alex is pursuing a race career. And trust me, because I've been there, there's a lot of battles in that field to get to where you want to be. You know, there's the vehicle, there's the team, there's the mechanics, there's the sponsors, there's the events, there's the competitors, there's making everybody, there's personal life, there's all, and not to mention the money, right? There's all these things that you're battling through to get there. But the opportunity in Alex's case is to get on the track, go win a race, or go place on the podium, or do well enough where on the other side of all that, you can bring in more sponsors, or you get to the next race, which of course gets you further down the road. You know, you have to look at these battles as things that you can overcome to advance your career and what you want to do. And by the way, there's always details amongst all the details, right? So if he's got sponsors that he's got to battle through, then he's battling through keeping them happy, and then battling their bad days versus their good days. And, you know, they're changing their plan and they want something different from you. So knowing this up front, that if you look at these things as a battle and what can be on the other side of it, you approach it differently to say, hey, this is an opportunity for me to grow. This is an opportunity for me to get further down the road. This is an opportunity for me to make somebody happy so that they want to work with me longer. This is an opportunity to bring more money in if I can overcome this, right? You know, referring back to my campaign with my candidate, I've already been given opportunities to do more things for other people in other businesses because I've chosen to push through the battle and know that there's something on the other side. I'll give you an example that happened today. It even surprised me because I didn't expect the phone call that I got, but it didn't surprise me because I'm always poised to understand if I get through the battle, there's stuff on the other side of that. So we were in Miles City for the Miles City Bucking Horse Sale, which is one of the largest rodeo events that happen in Montana. That's been 2 weeks now. I met briefly the president of Stockman Bank. And this particular individual, his name is Steve Coffey. He's probably one of the top 5 landowners in the entire state of Montana. So a little bit intimidating, super nice, down to earth guy. We talked about my candidate and what we were doing. He goes, I don't think you guys have a chance to win. Well, if that's not a battle, I don't know what is, right? So here I am face to face with this guy and, you know, power and authority and money. And I'd love to get his vote and I'd love to get his donation, but he doesn't believe in what we're doing, right? So I had to spend time with him, albeit brief, in the middle of a park to convince him that I've got the right candidate or we're on the right track. I gave him my card before I left. I said, hey, look, this is my personal number. This is my business card. If you ever need anything, I do public speaking, coaching, etc. But we'd love to get your vote. Well, he called me today. So there I was at a battle with him in the park. not thinking I was getting anywhere. And he called me today, says, "Hey, Jim," he goes, "your candidate might have a choice, might have an opportunity to win. We'll see how that goes next week." He goes, "But I'd love to hire you to come do some training at my company, Stockman Bank." Right. And so that was a call I wasn't expecting, but because I'd positioned myself in the battle that there could be an opportunity down the road, he took the time to take my card, pick up the phone, and call me and go, "Hey, I heard what you said. I'm willing to hire you to do some training with my team." Right. And like I said, that just happened today. If I was flustered with him because he didn't like my candidate, if I wasn't poised or equipped for the battle, he might not have ever been given the impression by me that there's more to what meets the eye, or there could be more to what I can offer him down the road. So I want you guys to think about this when you're in the heat of the moment, whether that's a mad customer or something you're struggling through. Just know that there's opportunity on the other side. So I don't think I could summarize that any better than what I just did with my own personal story. And by the way, if you're going through some battles right now and you want us to go through it together on the call, then ask that question, and we can dig into that for a minute. We've got two other topics I want to go through tonight. Rod, do you want to weigh in on that briefly before I jump to the next topic?
Yeah, I will. It occurred to me tonight, just while you were talking, Jim, that when we came up with this topic, not a battle but an opportunity, it really is mindset, right? That's what we're talking about here. But I want to. You said you get the thick skin, and that really left an impression because I always train people that you had to develop skin like a rhinoceros. If you want to get forward, you've got to be able to handle rejection and objections, right? Which is last week's call. If you guys missed that, I've got a one-liner I'm going to repeat again tonight. But what's important here is this isn't a battle because there are no casualties. There are really no you're not playing with life and death. So take that off the table. And well, Alex, you might be, right? But again, if you're doing everything right and you're prepared and you've got the right equipment, chances are you're going to survive even something like that. But this is a serious game, but it's not life and death, which means you're going to live to fight another day. You're going to live to fight another day. And that's what we need to be looking toward is I've got tomorrow in front of me. Look what the story Jim just said. He's fighting another day, and it's a new opportunity, not just an add-on opportunity. He'll probably get that guy's vote too, So it's one of those things. There are no casualties. The only casualty that you can expect is, and this is the line from last week with rejection. All it is you have to be able to endure the loss of social esteem from ignorant people. That's it. That's as hard as your job gets if your mind is right and you're prepared to go out. The loss of social esteem from ignorant people, someone who just doesn't see your vision, doesn't get what you're doing. And once you've got that point down, man, it's a lot easier for the skin to get thickened and toughened up. And there's always another battle. Jim, you and I both wrestled, right? So there were wrestle offs. You had to battle your own teammates to get a spot on the team, and then you went and battled the opposition, right? But again, there's no casualties. There's only growth. There's only strengthening. There's only more knowledge, more things to learn. So what a great way to package it all up, Jim. So yeah, that's my takeaway, and you can jump into your next two.
Yeah, so I want to put a little bow on this too for you guys. Nothing drives me more crazy than when you meet people out in public. Anthony, maybe you've seen at some of these coaching groups, and hey man, how's it going? Oh man, it's so tough right now. They've got this I'm beaten opportunity, like mindset all the time. What I hope to instill in this community is that, if you understand that there's opportunity on the other side of the battle, instead of meeting somebody and going, "Oh, business is so tough right now, I'm trying to grind it out," or Alex, I can't find any sponsors, this is terrible. Instead of having that mindset, you're like, you know what? I'm ready to go tomorrow. I've talked to 10 sponsors today. There are no, but I know tomorrow I got 10 more that want to talk to me. all of a sudden you start breeding and fostering that positive momentum, that energy in your own mind and which you're putting out in the world, that it will come to you instead of having that negative mindset of, oh, this is, life is so tough right now. And yeah, maybe you're an entrepreneur, maybe it's not the best year, but people will sense that and they want to walk away from that, right? You're only that one next phone call away from success. And there's a lot of reality to that, right? And I know that that's a cliche in a lot of the sales worlds, but that one more phone call could also be that word battle, right? The battle is making the one more phone call and then all of a sudden you got it, but it's in between. So what we're trying to do is shift your mentality to there is opportunity on the other side of this. Okay. So this could just be a great reminder for you. This could be something new for you to think about. This is something put in a different, phrase using battle versus opportunity. And Alex, I would really encourage you because you're in a tough world getting sponsors. They are out there. Okay. There's no shortage of money. They keep printing it every day. So if you don't know that, just watch the news. There's no shortage of money. You just have to get some of it. Okay. And you got to make enough calls. You got to be in the battle long enough to get somebody's sponsorship dollars. Also, you need to show them that it's worth investing in you. That's where the homework comes in. That's where the foundational work comes in, but it's there. Wayne's on the call. I know Wayne does a little real estate here and there. Maybe you don't get the rental opportunity or make the sale at the right time and you're frustrated, but people see how you transact in bad times. And if you're positive about it, they're going to want to do business with you at the right time. Okay. So always remember that opportunity on the other side. Okay. What I thought I would do, because I knew that this wouldn't take a terribly too long of a time, is add on top of this 2 other topics. And one is, this is what David Meltzer calls his 5 daily practices. And I've gotten so used to just doing this, I forgot that I had a written version of it because this is part of my regular routine the last, 7-8 years. So I want to walk through them real quick. This could be a reminder on some of the things I've talked about, especially if you've been in this group for a year or more, if you're listening later on to some of the long-term members. But this is also always a good, fresh reminder of some good daily practices. All right. So the first one, if you want to write them down, is know your what. Okay. Know your what. Take inventory of what you want for the day, aligned in the trajectory of what you want for in the future, and do it every day, right? Knowing your what. Where that relates to what I say a lot is knowing your values. Know your what. Personal, whether that's experimental or giving or receiving. Know your values, know your what. Okay. That's the first thing. And you should think about personal as the main driving force of what your what is. I talk about my kids all the time. I talk about my faith all the time. Those are my whats. Those are my whys. And I go after it. Know your what. And also by knowing that, it allows you to prioritize your daily activities, right? So if you're going to battle, you're battling for the right things, not for the wrong things. Know your what. Alex, you're a David Meltzer guy, so maybe this will be a little bit of a flashback for you. But this is a lot of what he teaches too. Okay. This is very unique to Dave, and that is know your who. And what he means by that is figure out who you can help and who can help you, right? Who you can help and who can help you. And so that there's 2 sides of that, right? We should always have that helpful giving mindset, in my opinion. The more you give, right? Push out in the universe, the better it's going to make you feel. And you know what? By the way, some of that comes back. Okay. But think about who you can help. And I always would try to make that as a priority. Who can you help? But at the same time, don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. Okay. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. As we've already talked about in the past, we're always willing to help other people. That was part 1, is who can you help, right? As humans, we thrive on helping others. So don't be afraid to ask if somebody can help you. And that, again, is part of the reason for this community, is that we want to build a community where you can ask each other, if you needed something, hey, how can you help me or grow this or do this, right? So who can you help and who can you ask for help? Maybe make a list and think about what your needs are. By the way, you might make that list of who can help you, and it might bring you right back here on a Monday night with a list of questions on, hey guys, this is what I need help with. Or during the week when we're willing to give you that help. All right. Know your how. Know your how. And what that relates to is, how are you going to get these things done? How are you going to help others? How are you going to ask them for help? A lot of Dave's reference in this knowing your how is being a student of your calendar, for example. You know, when do I have the time to do the things that's needed of me, right? And start fitting those things into your schedule. And then you start understanding your how. How are you going to do these things? Drives me nuts when people say, I don't have enough time to do that. There's always enough time. It's how bad do you want that? Because if you want it bad enough, you'll make the time. I know, you know, whatever your passion is. I know if I called Alex next week, I said, hey, we're flying him to the next F1 race. You want to go? All on me. He's going to figure it out. Right, Alex? You're going to go, right? Of course. There's always time to the things that you really want and that you're passionate about. So know your how and find the time and be a student of your calendar. If you don't know what I'm referencing there, look at your digital calendar, or if you want to write it all out, fill in your schedule and all your to-dos each day, and then your family time and what's important to you, and then start looking at the blank spots. That's your how, that's your opportunity spots, okay? Fill those spots up with things that will make a difference in what you're trying to achieve, all right? Having a daily routine is really important to achieving your how as well. And I know that's tough for a lot of us. It's really tough for me with kids and animals and all the other things, including excuses. Having a daily routine is a challenge for me. But I do know, and I've got it written right here on my whiteboard in my office, I do know when I follow that daily routine, I nail all my hows, I get through all the battles, and I achieve everything I need to achieve, as well as all the icing on the cake stuff. So have a routine if you can. And by the way, if you have a routine, don't be afraid to be adaptable. If something new comes your way, adapt that into your routine so that you can maximize what you're doing, right? The only way that you're going to make it adaptable is by knowing exactly what you want to do each day. So it's really important to have that routine and know your how, be a student of your calendar. Okay. Next one was know your now. I like this one the best because this is one that I've done for so long, almost to a fault. Know your now. 100% of the things you do now get done, which is why you should practice a do it now strategy. Okay? Do it now strategy. I love that because, you know, I get a new client. Actually, here's what I've been doing with my business coaching clients is I've been front loading their fees. And the reason why, and so just as an example, let's just say I'm doing a 3-month job. It's 10 grand. Okay. 3 months, 10 grand worth of consulting work. I'm going to front load it. I'm going to say, hey, it's 5 grand up front. And then the balance is paid out over the next 3 months. And the reason why I did that, because I've learned myself a lot about myself in coaching. I'm going to front load everything. I'm going to give them everything I can because I live in the now. Like, let's take care of these people now. They've hired me to do a job. I want to exceed for them. And all of a sudden I front load everything in the first 30 days and I get to the next 30 and it's like, wow, we're kind of done here, you know? So I can't justify, you know, charge them again. So now what I've learned is, okay. And I explain to my clients, like, look, we're going to front load a whole bunch of stuff. And then we're going to work through that stuff over a period of 90 days. And by the way, if you want to work through that on your own, then, you know, you could walk away because I do month to month, right? So, you know, I learned what my own, I don't want to call it a weakness, but I know what my strength was and how I was putting myself in a corner with my clients by knowing my now, by doing it all now, having that strategy, right? Alex, you might be able to test this. You signed up and I sent you months worth of racing stuff all within a couple hours, right? Because I wanted you to have all the tools to work through so that you're not waiting on me, but then you could look and digest through everything. So anyways, create a do it now strategy if that fits your personality. Okay. It doesn't work for everybody because some people want to be very methodical about how they step into things, but it does work for me. It allows me to focus, refocus in a do it now world. Okay. Uh, Within all that though, I try to have some deadlines. I kind of talked about that on my front load, but I do like to have some deadlines so that I know and my clients know where we're heading. Okay. All right. And then the last one, again, these were all David Meltzer's principles, is apply your why, which goes back to your values, which goes all the way back to point number one. And that's with intent, right? Is that your why is so important in everything you do. And, you know, as Stephen Covey used to say, you don't want to climb that company ladder and realize at the top you climbed the wrong ladder. You know, so know your why, so that when you get to the finish line, you're exactly where you want to be when you want to be there. So, okay, I'm going to dip into one other quick topic, and then I'll let Rod make some comments here. And then if you guys have Q&A, go ahead and type them in, or you can raise your hand, and we'll do it that way too. I was at an event the other night, and it was a book launch. Actually, it was a movie launch. The author had a new book out at the same time. The event was for the gospel patrons. Okay, and I'm not going to get all biblical on you here, but basically, what gospel patrons are, they are wealthy individuals that date back all the way, to when Jesus Christ was on the earth. And what it refers to is people of wealth that help further the word of God with their gifts, with their money. So as an example of what that might look like is that there was a wealthy Englishman that helped translate the Bible 200 years ago from Hebrew to English so more people could read it, right? He was considered a gospel patron. Now, gospel patrons of today would be somebody like the founder of Hobby Lobby. He gives, I believe the number is $500 million a year to faith-based organizations to further their efforts. He's what they call gospel patron. My takeaway on this and my message to you on this is that the way that these people operate is they operate in a world of abundance. And again, if you've listened to any of David Meltzer's quotes, he talks about living in a world of abundance. And what that means is, and I said earlier, there's plenty of money out there. You just have to get some, right? They're printing it every day. There's people willing to buy your services. There's people willing to sponsor your race car. There's people willing to rent your house, right? There's an abundance of things out there. You just need to go out and get it and provide a proper service. And so what I love about these gospel patrons is they give through a life of abundance. In other words, they're not afraid to give $500 million because they know there's more money to come based on their action, which is building their businesses, right? So they live what they consider a life of a river. The river is always flowing, okay? Meaning you give some water and more comes in. You give some money and more comes in. It's like the flow of a river, as opposed to a lake, okay? If you're operating your business like a lake, you got all this water and you take some out, well, you got a little less water. You take some more out, you got a little less water, less water, less water. Next thing you know, you got a pond, and then you got a puddle, and then you got nothing, right? Because you're living a life like a lake as opposed to a life like a river. And so that principle is, as you're giving, knowing that you're living in a life of abundance, more will come. Instead of living your life like this is a lake, and if you take some out, it's not coming back, right? All of a sudden, you do this mental shift, which creates bad habits because you start, making mistakes or overly protecting that money, or you're afraid to make an investment for the right reasons. Your values start getting skewed because all of a sudden you have a life of not abundance. It's like, oh, well, we can't do that. I don't have enough money. Live your life like the river, not the dam. Okay, live your life like the river, not the dam. And that's what was most impressing to me about the gospel patrons. There's a ton of companies that donate to the gospel patrons. If you're ever interested in doing a deep dive on it, just Google in gospel patrons. Companies that we all know and love or use having no idea the foundation behind in which they operate, which is this kind of river flowing, giving way of doing business. So that's all I was going to say on that. I was really impressive to hear some live stories from some of these wealthy individuals, as well as seeing this short film that they put out the other night. So, Rod, do you want to weigh in on those last two topics, or anything in general before we do?
Yeah, I'll definitely weigh in. First, the gospel patrons thing, living with abundance. Just Monday, it's ironic that you bring this up. On Monday, I'm reading a story about a guy named Jim who was dyslexic and in trouble with school, dropped out at 16. His parents were struggling. They moved to Canada. They actually lived, he and his sibling and his parents lived in a Volkswagen, what are they called? The Vanagon thing.
Yeah.
They lived in a Volkswagen bus, right? In parking lots in Canada for years. And he wanted to be an actor. And he wrote himself a check years and years ago. He wrote himself a $5 million check and put it in his wallet. And in the memo, it said, for acting services rendered. Because he was a comedian. He wanted to be a comedian. He was the goofball, the clown, right? And he wrote himself that $5 million check and carried it in his wallet, still carries it today. And his last movies went for he hired out at $20 million to do a film for each movie. That was his payday. That was Jim Carrey. So it's that you can overcome obstacles and struggles. And the struggle is real. We get that. The here and now is a struggle, right? So the know your now, you need to know that it's hard, right? But if you've got that abundant attitude and know that what's next is better, your payoff is better, that there is a life of abundance out there, you just keep plugging through the now until you get to where you need to get. And what a great story. But again, I like the gospel patron story better because they're getting to give, not just getting to get, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a big difference there. The other thing I wanted to bring up too was the know your now, do it now strategy. And Jim, this is what I loved about you when you and I first met. You're a get things done guy. You handed me your business card and you said, yeah, we need to talk. I think that's how we left it. We had a 30-second conversation. You gave me your card and you said, we need to talk. And we did. We got together and the rest is kind of history. But when we envisioned a couple of things that Jim and I wanted to work on, this being one of the offshoots of that, Jim told me, he said, most people can't keep up. And I just, to me, that was like a challenge. It's like, hey, I know exactly what you're talking about, right? Most people can't keep up with me either. So what's going to happen now? Yeah. And I heard a story just the other day that these Belgian draft horses, I can't remember what it is. It's an astronomical amount. Like each horse can pull like 20,000 pounds, each horse. But if you team them up, they can pull like 80,000. And I mean, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for someone to yoke yourself to that doesn't just double your efforts. Because you're competing and pushing, you do more. And so, I mean, that is that abundance. Where does that come from? It's magical. It's divine. So look who you're working with. Who are those 5 closest people that you can confide in, that you work with? And really just yoke yourselves to them and say, let's go. We're going to push hard. Because you can. I mean, it's a scientific, validated principle. So it's not just pie in the sky, name it and claim it stuff. This is real. So I love that, Jim, and thanks for that. I know that after I was in the hospital and brought back from the dead, we did a podcast 3 days later.
Yep.
Because that's how we do, right? So great stuff.
And by the way, we got an awful lot accomplished after I said no, not many people can keep up. I'd say one thing about that too, by the way, as I'm thinking through the process, is I was being brutally honest with Rod because I knew enough about myself and people that I no longer worked with because of the pace that I worked. And I didn't want to set us up to fail. I didn't know Rod was a tireless worker either, and it was a perfect fit. And I think the little lesson, just because he brought that up, is understand your strengths and your weaknesses And when you're looking at partnering with people, let those things play a role in that partnership and be transparent about it, because you'll find more success there, right? And that transparency also comes not only with potential partners, but maybe clients, our customers, or whatever that looks like. Anthony, I know you service equipment. You might say, hey, I don't know the details of how you sell a customer, but you might be brutally honest about something. You might be like, hey, we're the most expensive guy in town, but I promise you, your equipment's going to last the entire season, until I get to it again. And by the way, if you have a problem, call me. I'll be right here. It's understanding your strengths and your weaknesses, being transparent about it, and then standing behind those things, right? It would have been the joke would have been on me if I told Rod, hey, most people can't keep up, and he sat around waiting for me to do something for a month, right? Which wasn't the case. We both challenged each other to get a whole bunch of shit done in a hurry, which we did, right? Quality stuff too. So understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. So, okay, any questions? Raising hands or comments down there. I'd love to call Sean Fuller. You're on the call tonight. If you're able, I'd like to have you chime in and tell us what you're up to, because it's been a while since I've seen you on the calls. So what have you been up to?
Yeah, it's been pretty wild. I ended up getting promoted at Brave. Now I've turned into our CMO, so I manage our team of there are 5 people that work with me, and so I manage the entire team. That's been crazy busy. And then Monday nights, usually I do late nights with the C-suite, so that's why I haven't been able to make many calls.
Yeah. Okay, Sean, just for the group, because we've got a lot of new members that aren't familiar with your story and they're not here tonight. Some are here tonight. When you first joined, okay, you were pretty new at Brave Books. And yeah. I think you were just getting your feet wet and dabbling, and you weren't really sure, like, hey, what you had a little bit of imposter syndrome, like, I got this important marketing job, but what do I do here? Walk us through real quick, kind of your history there, what you were doing when you started, what your experience was. Obviously, we know now you're the CMO. And by the way, tell us how old you are again.
17 now.
17 now. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead with your story.
Yeah. So I started off as an assistant in PR, actually, at 15 years old. And I didn't have any experience. Obviously, I was 15. I was coming out of high school. And really quickly, we realized that marketing was very important and nobody on our team knew anything about it. So Trent, my brother, the CEO of the company, said, Sean, figure out this whole marketing thing. And I just got after it, obsessed over it, really. I mean, I was constantly researching it, reading books about it. And I was able to learn it and just slowly move up the food chain from assistant to ad buyer to head of marketing and then to CMO. So.
Okay. And that's been in a matter of a couple of years. I'm going to validate Sean a little bit because he mentioned his brother's the CEO there. Sean has been a tireless worker since the day that I met him on the phone. And then I've met him a few times in person around campaign season. But Sean's one of those guys. He's shown up on these calls as often as he could the last couple of years. My presumption is he uses the materials and watches videos when he can. But Sean is, like he said on the call, he did all the research. He figured out how to get the job done. He was in the battle for a long time, and he's earning those stripes. And where I'm going to really validate the work that he's doing, especially knowing now that he's the CMO. I subscribe to the books that he works. It's Brave Books. They're kids' books. I subscribe to those books for my kids, so we get a new edition every month. They read them, they love them. Sometimes they don't read them, they throw them in the corner, but eventually they get around to them. I'll be brutally honest with you, Sean. Sometimes, like, yeah, I'm going to cancel that subscription. I've been paying for I don't know, 2, 3 years, whatever that, however long it's like, it's another $20 a month I'm throwing out somewhere. But I don't for a couple reasons. One is I know the kids get around to them. I think they do appreciate them as they get older. But the other thing is the marketing of the product that I see to me feels authentic. It is filled with gratitude. It's quality. They stand for something. They align with my values. They're constantly throwing out deals or discounts or things that you can leverage. They're just doing an incredible job all the way around to keep my attention as a consumer of their product. So here I am buying something that I may or may not be totally passionate about 2.5, 3 years down the road, and I'm still getting it because they've done a good job with their marketing hook. So kudos to you, Sean, for the work that you're doing. And I would say all the battles that you've probably gotten through to get where you're at today.
Thank you.
So if you're not buying Brave books for somebody in your life, it makes for a nice gift. Okay, guys and ladies, when you watch later. So, okay. So I don't see any questions coming up. I'm going to call Wayne out. Wayne, if you're able to talk, love to hear what you're up to right now. We'll give him a second. He's like, oh shit, I'm eating my dinner or whatever you guys are doing on a video. All right, well, we'll go back to Wayne. Anthony, give us an update on what's going on with your business. Cause last time we talked, well, we've talked about a few things. I saw that you were with the window guys the other day. Are we going to do windows now or what's the deal?
I went with them. I wanted to help them with some marketing. They got his dad did the window glass business for like 25 years. So he restarted it up so that his son, who's my age, can get his own business going, and his daughter as well, who's also my age. So I went with them, took photos of them, took some videos of them. I'm gonna get like a nice intro video made for their website, just because they're really good, friends. Their family is like the nicest people I've ever met. So I want to help them out a little bit with that. Not charging them or anything like that. It was cool though to see how somebody else runs their business, even though it's a different business than mine. It's still a service-based business that, they do mobile stuff like me. It was pretty interesting. It was fun. I only had like a half day of work, so I went and did that with them. So I still got my stuff done, but and I'm trying to help someone else out ultimately, because they have potential, but they don't really understand all the IT stuff that I'm pretty good at. So where I can help, I'm gonna help. My business though is doing really well. It's super busy still. I'm still about a week and a half, 2 weeks booked out, which is less busy than like 4 weeks, which was at the beginning of May. So I'm starting to kind of catch up a little bit. It's just got some couple tough repairs this week that I always schedule them for the last job of the day, just so that I got, a little extra time to do them. But everything it really is going well. I had to pay my tax bill this week, which was great. But everything's great, honestly. Everything's great.
I love that. So here's what I hear. Okay. In Anthony's brief points there. First thing, he's helping somebody else, right? Which goes back to what we were talking about in David Meltzer's helping other people. Good job. I also hear him talking about doing some marketing work for somebody. Now, if you didn't catch, Anthony owns a repair business. He repairs small equipment. He's not a marketing person by trade, but he has a skill set. So Anthony, be careful. You might find yourself owning a marketing company like we do over at my house because my wife was good at it. All of a sudden, she actually has 2 marketing companies now. Not that the number has anything to do with one or the other. It's about revenue, right? But you might find that you love doing what you're doing and you develop a second business into that, all from helping somebody else, right? So I hear that loud and clear as well. And the third thing that I hear is that you went and worked with somebody. Yeah, you were helping them, but you also mentioned it was interesting to see how somebody else runs their business because they're in the service repair business, right? So good for you doing all those things on top of what you do and having success in what you do. and being willing to do those things, but also identifying, outside your norm there. So you're doing all the right stuff. It's what attracted me to you originally, is I knew that you were that kind of person. And here you are live on the call talking about doing all the things I thought you might do. So hey, Wayne, I see your face. Can you talk? You got to take your mute off.
All right, 20. I figured it out finally.
Okay, how you doing? What are you working on?
2024. I think I should have it down by now, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm working on a pool right now. We're over here cleaning the pool. Got my sun hat slip on. Got the kids over here working too with me. So, and we're on our Zoom call. So we're doing good, man. Life's good. Been doing a lot of traveling. We've been, enjoyed our holiday weekend, celebrating the memorial of all the soldiers and everything. So, everything's going pretty smooth. I got my real estate Airbnb rental that I was doing. Right now I'm actually currently in the process of selling it. It's just, trying to move a different direction than what I started, but I guess that's one of the challenges that I've been trying to overcome over the past couple months, is when the numbers weren't where I thought they would be, what I needed to do to make a change. So that's pretty cool. So I decided to sell that property and, take that liquid and, I'm going to try to figure out what's the best option to do with it once I get it. So, yeah, other than that, everything's actually been real fun over here. Real peachy.
Good, good job. Okay, for the community, if you want to understand how to enjoy life more, call Wayne. Wayne does not waste a moment without his family and his kids, obviously. When he says he was just off celebrating the long weekend, you can better believe that he was off at the river doing some type of boating family activity. But Wayne sets a great example of somebody that's found success in business, and he's got some investments on top of his business, which is, of course, another business. But he's also found time for his family and placing that more importantly than the other things. And I think Wayne told us about a year ago, I think it's been a year, Wayne, that you realized through some of these calls how important the family component was, and you started to dial in more on that side and less all about business making money, right?
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, probably about a year ago. Well, it's been longer than that. It was really when my son was born.
Yeah.
But once I really started diving into these calls, I kind of realized, like, it wasn't all the main business wasn't just going out and making money, right? The business was figuring out a way to make enough money to live a happy life, to be able to take care of my family, and not necessarily be like, oh, I made 10 grand this month, like, no, I made 2 grand this month. But with that 2 grand, I was able to spend an extra 200 hours with my family, where I wouldn't have had, the option if I was just chasing the dollar per
Yeah.
se, So,
Yeah. Well, kudos to you, Wayne. You figured it out and you're living that by example. So for those of you that are still trying to figure out your business plan and where you're going, Wayne nailed it with his values. Like you said, it's been over a year now and he's been living that. So Wayne, thanks for sharing. Appreciate it. Alex, you're already off mute, so I'm calling on you next. Tell us what's going on in your pursuit of racing. Is there a sticking point? Are you feeling like you're gaining a little traction? Where are you at?
So, yeah, have got a little bit of traction. A lot of it is just trying to not feel like I'm fumbling around my way in the dark of what the next steps are going to be. Website is, I finally had to outsource that. Had a meeting about that today. Picked up a new sponsor last week, local sponsor, kind of focusing more on the regional stuff. Was talking with the track manager at one of my local tracks. We were having a conversation about how the grandstands needed to be updated and this, that, and the other. So I wound up kind of shooting myself in the foot, because the money that I was going to hopefully get from these new sponsors is now into a co-branded thing that they're paying for, but still using my name as well. into, they purchased essentially a long-term up to 20-year lease to do the best stands at the local track, with replacing all the wood, and we're now making it a party area. And their names on it, and for just by replacing the wood seats in the bleachers, they now will have their name and my name up there. We've come up with ideas of, the really nice porta potties, hot dog carts, music, all sorts of crazy stuff, taking the track into a different level of community and fun, that trying to bring it back to the days when, Paul Newman was racing there and things like that, doing Trans Am. So that money that I probably could have used on one of the cars is now going to wood and bleachers, but I think in the long term, it's going to come out better. A lot of the stuff that you've said tonight, really hit home, because it's, what I'm doing. Had a meeting today with a veterans group that I call reverse sponsoring, that I have had on my car for years. And each year I have them out. They put it on their website and they bring veterans out to the track, and we give them tours, rides in the pace car, etc. Just signed that off today, for the race in July. And we're going to do that a little bit bigger this year, since we've got sponsors and reserve paddock space and all that other stuff this time. So we'll get them fed, and then hopefully have their logo on a lot more cars, up to about 10 cars maybe that weekend. So that, and as far as an example of giving, talking to someone and then not knowing when you're going to talk to them again, the person from this veterans group, I actually met at a U.S. Army trade show for aeronautical satellite communications about 7 years ago. He's a wounded veteran. They're up in Maryland. One of the coolest people I've ever met in my life, and whenever I told him yesterday, I was like, man, whenever I'm having a bad day, I think of what you went through in Afghanistan, because he's missing an arm and a leg. And he does more stuff than I did. He built his own motorcycle, then wrecked it, then rebuilt it again. And I'm, so he kind of is one of those people that gives me thoughts about this. But again, you never know where you're going to be, who you're going to talk to. And that has happened a lot over the years. And one of the big things that I took from my last job in my career to doing the racing stuff, and that was what was in my mind when I went to the PRI show in December in Chicago. The very first person I gave one of my business cards to, that I had made up right before I left, was the one and only Tony Kanaan. And I walked up to him. He had done he was the person that did the interview, and there's this big event, the breakfast, the first meeting, our first morning, and he was just shaking hands and everything. And I went up to him and I said, Tony, you've been an idol of mine for a long time. I just started my own company, and I want you to be the first person I gave my card to. And he took it, and he didn't rip it up or throw it on the ground. He put it in his back pocket, and I got a picture of me and him together. So, it's, who knows, maybe something will happen. Maybe Zach Brown from McLaren will give me a call. Who knows? But if you don't take those shots, you'll never know whether they worked out or whether they happened or what have you. So, look at this. Look, meeting you, Jim, talking to Rod, Anthony, and I have even texted back and forth, joking around, talking about different ideas. It's been a while. Sorry about that, Anthony. But I think, to how I met you, Jim, I had a legal question about a racing opportunity from last summer. Wound up catching up with a lawyer that I worked with at the last company. We then wound up talking, became good friends. He introduced me to David Meltzer, who then introduced me to you. and then to Rod and to Anthony. And, that's just this connection. You never know where all this stuff's going to be. He and I we actually have never met in person before, this lawyer. But we've known each other forever. And he stopped working for the company in 2020, and I stopped in 2022. So we only worked together for about 9 months, and look what this has brought me for something that I didn't even know was going to happen.
So Alex, thank you for sharing. And I'm going to wrap this up in a second, guys, to be respectful of our time. Here's what I heard you say, Alex, and thank you everybody for sharing tonight. We didn't have any questions come up, so I figured it's always a good use to put you guys on the spot. Alex, what I'm hearing you say is that you're in the race world. If you're improving the grandstands and you're helping get sponsors for that activity, how good is that going to feel when you're talking to somebody down in the paddock and be like, oh yeah, by the way, I helped get all those bleachers done so that we can host the 100 or 200 or however many, 1,000 people, whatever it is, so we can host them to watch these races. You can't be in a business unless you're in the business. And by the way, without those people in the grandstands, you're not going to race because there won't be anybody there to watch you. So good for you getting your way into the industry in a much larger way. It might not be your first route in, your first choice, but you're in, right? So good for you. And the thing about meeting somebody, and then ultimately you wind up here and you're meeting people like Anthony, that's because you've had the mindset and you know where you wanted to go. You're able to connect those dots. Do you know how many relationships and introductions are wasted because somebody doesn't know where to connect the dots, or they're unwilling to connect those dots? You're light years ahead of most people if you just have that mentality like, hey, you know what? I'm willing to connect the dots. I'm willing to give myself to this other person because you never know where it's going to go. And when I say give yourself, be willing to help, be kind and attentive, and be more interested than interesting, right? And just see where it goes. It might not go anywhere, but yet you built another great relationship. So, all right, guys, look, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for shifting gears from the holiday. We've said this a long time ago. We hate missing a week, so we shifted it to tonight. So thanks for being here. If you need anything from us during the week, don't be afraid to reach out. I've got an hour. We're in an hour right now. So, Rod, closing thought, and then I'm going to turn this thing off.
I think we're in the game. Everybody's here. Keep it up. It's a grind, and it's a lovely grind. So keep after it. And it was guys' night out tonight. All guys on the call tonight. So if you're watching this later on and you're one of the ladies in the group, sorry, you missed out. Okay, guys, have a good week. We're here for you if you need us. Bye.